Much hop to the family, much hop to the tribe. Welcome back to another episode of Templar Up. I'm your host and your Templar, Irvin Reed, and thank you for surfing the wave with me because I'm surfing the wave with you. It's been a long time. I shouldn't have left you. Not without a dope beat to step to, but we gonna flow something nice and smooth. Uh, you know, Hallel Hawa, Hallel Hawa, all praise the Most High. And today should be a good one. First and foremost, I just gotta show that a hob to Brother King for holding it down. We went through Pressure John 62, 63, 64. There was a lot more going on. We've been surfing the wave, locking in and digging in. If this is a great time to be in the back of the classroom. Johannes Hebrew Prince bringing bangers. Yourself is always holding it down with that seasoned Messiah. And, we're asking the right questions. So what it's all about. And today what I want to get into is actually in the copper thread, and how to the vote. He had a good question, and speaking about time and things of that nature, and it put me in the mind of when Aqua Type Battle, the record keeper, came out. Her and Big Brother Nature came out like dragons should and like dragons could, and it was a moment. So she said to me, she was like, Tim, when you gonna drop another timeline drop? Now I looked at Brother Nature, looked back at Aqua, and said, what do you mean? That's all I've been doing. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing new, And she put on that nice smile, raised her hand, snatched out the ether what I said, and told me, yeah, no, I need you to break it all the way down to the snap bone. So, so I guess it's that time and season where things presented itself. It would have been nice, circumstances being what they are, if I could have. If I could have, came out with some drops sooner to prepare for this, the end of the last season of 2020. But as it were, as things go, as things are, we gotta do what we gotta do, as we gotta do it to the best of our ability, or do what's best for our family, keep a roof over our head, but ultimately keeping eyes on the prize. There's a lot of changes going on, and with those changes, it's a high level of being uncomfortable. But hopefully, as we get into it today, we can expose some of the hijack. So I hope everybody can sit back, get cozy, and enjoy the drop. Once again, we back in here. Make sure you download the app, support the tribe. Brother King has been, pure water and dropping all the different videos and drops on the YouTube. Instagram is always on and popping. So just want to make sure that you stay tuned up. Believe it or not, all we got is all we got. And we're going to see and realize today that a lot of what we think we know is not what we really know. So we're just talking about, the timelines, right? For those who are new to surfing the wave, over the course of the years of surfing this wave, searching for Pressure John. You know, we diligently went over how time how time seems to be operating. And make no mistake about it, it goes fundamentally back to and connected to your picto-paleo. You know, a lot of what we think we know really isn't what we know. Well, a lot of the things we think we mean isn't what they mean. And one of the part of that truth in the search is following by the precepts, Sefer HaMitzvot. You know how it's written, how Noah and Job are one and the same, and the timeline has really collapsed. And you know we know about the phantoms and duplications. And speaking of which, while I got this up and as a thought in my mind, this here is the original breakdown of the Picto-Paleo, right? That we had started and learned from. Brother Drop replayed the breaking it down, learning how to flow with the Picto-Paleo, and it just reminded me how when you get, there's like 2 or 3 of this exact format, but the lettering are scrambled. They're not in the same order that what we're originally learning. And that's not uncommon for the hijack. Actually, kind of quite common. But in any case, we're dealing with time, and the one thing that became noticeable is how there are certain pattern shapes that tend to stick out. Okay, when it comes down to your timeline. Now, when we put the timeline back together after much research, this is what we had came up with over the years of trying to understand the phantoms and duplications, studying the different works of Anatoly Fomenko, your Joseph Campbell, your all the your Graham Hancock, all these different situations with different people. And the one thing that has become clear is that there's nothing really happening prior to the 700 AD, and just as is, we'll get it like it is for the first time, parallel timeline history. He states how there's no data that goes back no further than the 8th century. And you get some ancillary documents that take you back to about this 300 area. And when we put back together the timeline, the only person that came up in the smallest gap of time was Nahum Ben David. And it was that oddity that really made the name stick out. And when we started to do the recon, Brother King did like I said, when he did that journey to Nip, breaking it all the way down. And speaking of that, make sure you get your ether pack, man. Get your ether pack. By the way, while I'm talking about it, Eat the squid. So, we in there. We in there. But in any case, yeah, he did a beautiful job of breaking the stuff down and connecting the non-benevolent and who a non-benevolent is and anion, and all that other good stuff. So make sure you dig on it, so that you know what we're talking about. So if you are wondering, you know, what are these? Where did I get these events? I think it was Terrence McKenna or McKinney or something like that. He came up with something called the novelty wave, and these are certain happenings that just happen, and and they seem to affect the way the rest everything else flows. But in any case, real quick, just in case you are new to surfing the wave, if this is your first time, let's get it like it's the first time. Parallel timelines in history. It's about a good 8 minutes here. So please pay attention.
Your intention in writing history is the same as the intention of a modern historian, namely to give a faithful chronicle of events.
See, now notice what he said. First of all, it wasn't the intent of the ancient historian to give you an accurate chronological account of events.
We cannot take this for granted at all. As a matter of fact, it's a fair assumption that many ancient writings would have a sort of moralistic purpose. They were much more in keeping with, like Roman histories was showing, the grandeur of certain figures, giving uplifting accounts and so forth. This is very, very important because the results that we're talking about are, in some cases, are going to look and seem so preposterous to you that you will be very tempted to just turn your mind off or turn you back to the whole thing. And what Ellen and I are above all trying to do is not make you throw out the data. You may discard Flamenco's interpretation of the data. You may discard the interpretations that we have of the data, but you shouldn't throw out the data. In my opinion, the data is incontrovertible.
The data is incontrovertible. Now, they're going to go through this chart, and one of the things that you notice is the similitude, where you've seen this pattern before. And he's going to break down and so that you can understand it and how this pattern works.
You see on the right-hand side, this is the Roman Empire from 82 BC to the 3rd century AD. On the left-hand side, we have the Roman Empire from the 3rd century through the 6th century AD. And we are writing the Roman emperors in the order in which they occur according to the chronicles, according to the histories, even according to modern history. To read the diagram, the spaces, say, from here to here, would represent the length of reign of that emperor. So, in other words, here's 41 years, a long reign. This diagram is supposed to show a kind of symmetry between a period of time in which you have a sequence of Roman rulers, and then a period of time more than 300 years later, in which you have another sequence of Roman emperors. Now, let's start here with Augustus. Okay, he reigns for 41 years, and Constantine the Great Augustus reigns for 31 years. And you say, well, big deal, I agree, that's 10 years difference. But follow what happens after here. You have Tiberius compared to Constantius II, 23 and 24. When we come to Caligula, it's 4 years and 2 years. Caligula is paired to Julian the Apostate. Then we have Claudius, 13 years, and Valentinian, 11 years, and so forth. Now, so you understand the principle behind the figure. It is meant to show the symmetry between lengths of reign of emperors who are understood to have reigned more than 300 years apart. Toward the end of this period in Roman history, we have a sequence of 4 emperors who all reigned for less than 1 year. Okay, they were died or they got off by the legions or whatever it was. And that's paired by a sequence of rulers who all reigned less than 1 year on the other side. Okay, very, very conspicuous. Now, the other thing that's interesting is this period, sort of in Roman history, ends with an invasion by the Goths, where you have Caracalla. Oddly enough, exactly on the other side, you have a second, let's put it this way, quote unquote, second invasion of the Goths.
Now, it's important that you pay attention to the fact that he said, quote unquote, a second invasion. When you do your story, when you do your recon, there's a lot of stories, quote unquote, histories, quote unquote, that are duplicate, where you're hearing the story over and over. And just as repetition can plant the seed, repetition can also break the spell. And the more you understand that when they're giving you these historical dates, each school of thought actually has their own quote unquote formulae for equating those dates. So each individual science or school has their way of quote unquote thinking. But when you remove the dates and look at the information, things become a lot more clear.
Okay, on the left, we have the Roman Empire from the 1st century BC to the 3rd century AD. Then we have the Holy Roman Empire from the 10th century to the 13th century. In other words, on the left here, we have largely the same people who are that we had on the right-hand side in the previous one, but now they're being compared to rulers of the Holy Roman Empire. Okay, basically about 1,050 years later.
Now, when you're talking about the Holy Roman Empire, now you're talking about Constantine. Now you're talking about, one of the, Constantine being one of the 9 worthies, right? The nine examples, the 3 pagans, the 3 heathens, and the 3 pagans, the 3 Hebrews, and the 3 Christians, which are the 3 which are the 3 in each category that symbols the best of nobility, being worthy. And those are your 9 dragon kings, and we've dug on that.
And you see that we have another symmetry. Okay, this is how it's reported. But remember, we have to bracket almost everything of this kind over here, because we don't know what the veracity of the chronicles is, what the intention of the chronicles was, or even what the people really understood by it.
I don't think anybody in any position really to make a hypothesis, run with it, to the exclusion of everything else before they understand anything about it.
And you know what? Over the years of studying this, she's absolutely right. And we just happened to, by standing on code, we broke the code.
Obviously, lots of crazy ideas are going to occur to you, but, because they occur to me all the time, and I try to follow them out as much as I can.
Fomenko's opinion is the only legitimate history. Now, this doesn't mean that nothing happened before this. The only history that our documents address themselves to is from the period of 300 AD until modern times. The period of 300 AD until modern times. Nothing happened before this. The only history that our documents address themselves to is from the period of 300 AD until modern times.
Okay. Now, that's very, very important. Please keep that in the back of your mind. Now, why am I bringing all this up? Well, why am I telling you to go back and check out the last 3 Prester Johns? Because there's something that came up, and it's a beautiful drop Brother King did, and he started breaking down. Lilith and the story behind Lilith. And when he was breaking it down, and there was the association with Lilith being from a woman of Genesis chapter 1, right? You go down to, let's see here. Yeah. When God, starting in Genesis chapter 1:24, when God creates man, okay? And then, where is it? Here, verse 27. Okay? They most believe that the female here is Lilith, and how Lilith connects to your Sheba. And when you surf the wave, the way Brother King broke it down, he made the connect to Queen Sheba and this Lilith, the queen who sought out King Solomon, right? Now, personally, when you dig on it, it's kind of odd to me, Because if she got with Adam, right, even though it's generations removed, this, that, and the other, there's kind of an incestuous tone. You know, I mean, you're talking about generations separated, this, that, and the other, you know, quite possibly not, but, it's just that it's there, right? And when I was digging on it, I came to the realization that it's about the seed. And when we're talking about the seed, we're talking about the son of Nun, right? And the seed of a woman. When you're talking about Genesis chapter 1, 2, and 3, we're talking about the seed of a woman. And the reason why I bring that up is because I believe all the recon Brother Khan did dealing with Lilith is accurate. But where I think the curveball comes in is in this man, right? When it comes down to the male and female, I think we wrongly attribute this male to being Adam, or should I say, the Adam of Genesis 1, right, is not the Adam of Genesis 2, and the good reason for that, for multiple reasons. Again, parallel times in history, but when you're talking about, I think I was listening to Brother Yosef. He was in Caesar Messiah drop, and you have to understand, and that when God created on the sixth day, He only created man, and there's different various forms of man. But the only thing, when we're talking about witness, right, stand on code, the only thing that they witness, is God creating. The only code that they have is be fruitful, right? And then what's the second law? Multiply. And then what's the third law? Well, they witness Hawa, rest. So those are the only three things that they got to go off of. Now, whether we're talking about eons, millennia, centuries between each one of these particular days here in Genesis, or what's going down here in Genesis chapter 2, it's kind of, everything kind of collapsed. What I mean is this: these are two different creations going down. Because when you get to, and when you read Genesis chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, you're supposed to read them separately, but then you're supposed to read them as a whole, okay? Because it's about the 3, 6, and the 9. And reason why I bring that up, okay, which I find fascinating, is that if the recon be true, that this woman here from Genesis chapter 1 is Sheba, that marries King Solomon, right? Then we have to ask the question that we've been surfing on over here, one that we can't get past, which is Job, which is Noah. If she's in Genesis chapter 1, then where is she, or where is she at when it comes down to the flood? Because now we're talking about Genesis chapter 6, and when you dig on Genesis chapter 6, right? God had to judge it, but on the boat, right? You had Shem, Ham, and Japheth. According according to the narrative, the only people that, as we understand it, as they generally like to say, is that it was Noah, his wife, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and their wives. Then, so in order for Lilith to make it from Genesis chapter 1 all the way to 1 Kings, she had to survive the flood. Now, there's only a few candidates that she could be. Now, is she the wife of Noah? There's a lot of correlation to Noah and Adam being one and the same. There's a lot of similitudes, a lot of similarities there, right? And again, there's that difference between phantoms and duplication. Just like positive and negative commandments. Now, that's an option. She could have been Noah's wife, right? It seems like from what we've been able to dig on, she likes to dig with the head of household, or she is one of the wives of the three sons, right? Now, I'm want to postulate that I don't think either is correct. And he goes back into Noah's Ark being Noah's Ark, and the whole story of the flood and why this goes down. When you dig on it, I told Noah to gather everything after its kind, 2 by 2, right? 2 by 2. And why does he tell them to gather everything 2 by 2? Well, it goes back into Genesis chapter 1 and the creation of man. Okay, when you talk about Genesis chapter 6, let me go back. In Genesis chapter 1, the description of man here, the living creatures, as it were. There's multiple descriptions, and I've stated this before, that when you look at the ancient histories, these beasts of the earth, or when you look at the words like cattle, what I'm saying, and things of that nature, they're talking about people. They're not talking about animals like me and you might think, or what we've been programmed to think, because we're not reading or taking from the context, number one, just what it says plainly. We've been programmed our understanding has been programmed into us versus reading for ourselves at face value. So when you get into Genesis chapter 6, when it came down to the ark, right? And he had to make sure that 2 of every sort, of what? Every living thing of all flesh. Okay? So again, real quick, we're talking about clean beings. They got to be clean. And when we're talking about those that are clean, we are talking about Genesis chapter 1, man and woman, and the different variations. So this is my theory as to how, when it comes down to the legend, or Eve, or Queen Mother floating through the timelines, how she survived the flood, that is my take and theory. Now, why do I say all of that? Well, because it really does go back into what happens thereafter. And again, it goes back into your parallel timeline of history. Now, understanding that, when you go back to what he said, that the timeline is very, very short. And when we put together back the timeline, we don't go back no further than about the point in time that he said. Now, bringing back up Anon ben David. Now, when Brother King broke it down, Anon ben David is, is brother of Solomon, and he's also the brother of Daniel. Okay, and Daniel is Nehemiah. It's all this wild connect gang, as it were. Now, so that we can get to the dismount, right? Because if you think about it, and we can, should I do that now? We can get into some wild numbers, but maybe I'll just mount with that. But let's continue. Let's do this first. Let's dig on the information, and then if we got time to play with some numbers, we'll play with some numbers. Now, not too long ago, we were with all the different stuff that we were talking about in the surfing the wave. We were talking about voting and what have you. And I wanted to take you back to the pie on certain things, and it's very important because we're only talking about the Book of Judges. Okay. Now, after Genesis, after you get the Torah. Genesis, Deuteronomy, Leviticus, Exodus, Numbers. The first book you get is the book of Joshua. And the book of Joshua is where, for the most part, the son of Nun, Joshua, establishes the throne. He establishes the house of David, the seed of David, before it became David, in a lot of ways. And the very next book, and when you read it, you notice it really is about the kingship part. But the second part of that book, which you should read with Joshua, is the very next book, which is also the book of Judges. Okay? And the book of Judges is where the vassal house, or the vessels, right, Swan Knights, went out and they judged Gideon and the boys. But when we're talking about the proto-indigenous root, we get the word dike, which means to show, pronounce solemnly. And this is why I brought this up, because we're not talking about a vote, but to pronounce solemnly. There is a right and wrong way to pronounce solemnly. Also derivative referring, directing the words or objects. And this is where you get, look at this, abdicate, application, addict, right? The whole crack epidemic, but this is where you get the word, avenge, right? And then a benediction, betoken, right? Condition, contradiction, contradict, right? Because contra, contra, according to the Latin, apparently is supposed to mean against, right? Would you notice they don't call him contra Christ, they call him antichrist. You might want to dig on that. There's a reason why. But this is where you get to what? Dictionary. This is why we always dig in on the Webster's Dictionary, 1428. Right? This is where you get the digit, right? Ditto, edict, right? Index, judge, jurisdiction, right? Juridial, Malleson paradigm. And a lot of the history or his story is like paradigm. Right now we're in a paradigm shift, right? But this is also where you get what policy and what just a written insurance agreement, right? And then you also get preach. This is where now we're getting into again one of your it's in Ecclesiastes. That's what it means, the preacher, right? And to teach. Your token. V for vendetta. Vindication, vindicate, void or dire. Okay, and now I bring that up because if you understand to pronounce solemnly, that means you're judging. So make sure that your judgment is in line with the code. Okay, and that way you're not bearing any false witness. Now, what else we got here? Now, real quick, why did I bring that up? Now, when you're talking about a meteor, right? Right? In a general sense, a body that flies or floats in the air. In this sense, it includes rain, hail, snow, etc. But in a restricted sense, not commonly understood, a fiery, luminous body or appearance flying or floating in the atmosphere or in a more elevated region. We give this name of brilliant globes or masses of matter which are occasionally seen moving rapidly through the atmosphere, and which throw off loud explosions, fragments that reach the earth, and they are called falling stones. Right? We call by the same name those fireballs, which are usually denominated falling stars, supposed to be owing to gelatinous matter inflated by the phosphorated hydrogen gas. Also, the lights which appear most over grounds and graveyards are ignis fatui, which are ascribed to the same cause, and meteor light flame lawless through the sky. And why do I bring that up? That's not the one. That's not the one. Because I want you to grab. Now, we were talking about, right? Now, comet, right? By the etymology, is one of a class of celestial bodies which moves about the sun in a great elliptical orbits. Since the 1200, right? From Old French comet, modern French comet, okay, from Latin cometa, from Greek aster, kometes, literally long-haired star, okay, from kome, hair of the head, komen. Let the hair grow long, which is of unknown origin. It's of unknown origin. Usually if it's on an unknown origin, that means it's got to do with you. Now, the so-called from resemblance of a comet's tail to streaming hair. Now, talking about a comet, where was it? Now, we get what a comet is, right? Now, check this out. Where is it? Hold up. Now, we are talking about comets. I'm talking about timelines. Now, I don't think, maybe you remember, maybe you don't, but years ago, in 1994, there was a comet. Shoemaker Levi 9 right? In July of 1994, around the world, watch as fragments of comet Shoemaker Levy 9 slam into the planet Jupiter. All right. So, what we know about dragons today, they go. Now, it's funny because Schumacher leads back into Artaxerxes and back into the Wandering Jew and Levi 9. I mean, come on. They go.
At the close
Let's
of
get
the
it
last
bigger.
century, a comet captured into orbit around a planet traveled too close and was shredded by its gravity into multiple pieces, some as large as half a mile or 1 kilometer long. Those fragments would plunge into the planet's atmosphere in a series of impacts. Would the impacts be spectacular? Would the comet fragments disappear without a trace? In July 1994, astronomers around the world watched with bated breath as the fragments of comet Shoemaker-Levy 9 slammed into the planet Jupiter. Dr. Kelly Fast was one of the impact's observers and is now manager of NASA's Near-Earth Object Observations program.
It was just incredible to watch. Such an impact event had never before been witnessed, let alone studied. Ground-based telescopes around the world and spacecraft like NASA's Hubble Space Telescope and even the Galileo orbiter en route to Jupiter were used to observe the impacts. The discovery of the comet by Carolyn and Gene Shoemaker and David Levy gave us about a year to plan our observations.
The impacts proved to be impressive. The fragments, some 21 in all, plunged into Jupiter's atmosphere over the course of 6 days. At impact, they were traveling at
Over the course of 6 days. So a dragon was being a dragon all up on this Jupiter, right? Okay.
a speed of about 37 miles per second, or 60 kilometers per second, heating the atmosphere to at least 53,000 degrees Fahrenheit, or 30,000 degrees Celsius. Like the splash from throwing a rock into a pond, the impacts created giant plumes of material from Jupiter's lower atmosphere, which rose as high as 1,900 miles, or 3,000 kilometers above the cloud tops into the stratosphere. In the aftermath, the plume splashback scarred Jupiter's atmosphere with dark clouds of impact debris, which could be seen for months as they were gradually dispersed by Jupiter's winds. So what were scientists able to learn about Jupiter itself as a result of the impacts? For one thing, those dark clouds of impact debris acted as tracers of the winds in Jupiter's stratosphere, and by following their motion over time, scientists could measure those high-altitude winds. Temporary changes in the aurora on Jupiter showed scientists that Jupiter's magnetosphere was influenced by particles from the impacts.
All right. Now, why do I bring that up? Right? Because we're only talking about Jupiter. Right? Now, what you know about dragons now? You know, you got a dragon that went all ham, right, on Jupiter. Now, Jupiter at its root is Deu, right? And this is where you get Osmodeus and Deified and Deity and Dos Ex Machina, right? And Diva, right? This is where you get Diana. That's your Statue of Liberty. It's also your Wonder Woman, right? Diva, right? GVs, Divine, Josh, Journal, Journalist, Journey, Hove, right? Now, why do I bring this up? Because we're talking about Lilith at first. And if we're talking about Lilith, how she's the diva, right? She's the one that is that progenitor. And then you get, from the same word, you get Hove, or your Zeus, or your Julius, like Julius Caesar, and your Jupiter, right? Your Jupiter. Now, why is this important? And for the dismount, this is important because when you're talking about Hove, what you're talking about is a duplication of Job. You see, Hove is a phantom of Job. Haleh Hawa, Haleh Hawa. Peace.